Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to our presentation to hear about the Interstate 405 Pavement Rehabilitation Project through the Sepulveda Pass. My name is Lauren Wallachy, and I'm a Public Information Officer with Caltrans. We're going to start off tonight with our presentation on the project, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. If you have a question during the presentation, please type it in the chat, and we'll address it during the Q&A portion. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the project manager, Kenny Ha, to start the presentation.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Lawrence, for introduction. My name is Kenny Ha. I'm the project manager of this project. So let me go to the agenda for this presentation tonight. First of all, we're going to discuss about the project summary, and then we're going to talk about the schedule. And then our construction manager going to discuss about the existing condition of this project and the project scope, and also the neighbor and traveling public. And then we're going to have our district traffic manager discuss about the state construction and detour during construction. And we're going to have the show the public information that's for any question or inquiry that you can contact with. And then lastly, we're going to have a Q&A section at the end. Okay, first of all, let's get into the project summary. Construction of this project in various locations on both of Route 405, from Victory Boulevard in Van Nuys through Wilshire Boulevard in Westwood. That you can see the graph on the picture that is showing the highlight the route. And the next one, the schedule of this project. This project will preserve and extend the life of the existing pavement and improve the ride quality and enhance safety. And we advertised this project in fall last year, and we have a bid opening in winter. And we award this project just spring of this year. And we are targeting that begin construction in summer this year. And we plan to have the complete construction in winter 2028. And then we have a 1 year of planned establishment. So the project will complete finish by winter 2029. Now, next, I'm gonna introduce our construction manager, Sam Tatochian. Will walk you through the project scope and construction. Go ahead, Sam.
Thanks, Kenny. And yeah, as Kenny mentioned, my name is Sam Tatunchian. I'm the resident and construction engineer for the project. I'm also in charge of the Burbank Construction Field Office here in District 7. And before I get into some of my topics, I just want to introduce the role of the resident engineer. We are the engineer of record and responsible charge to administrate the contract with our contractor during the construction phase. Our contractor is C.A. Rasmussen and Vanguard Joint Venture. I think it's important to recognize that we work very closely with our contractors as partners to deliver the project safely for the traveling public and with a high degree of quality. So with that, I'd like to kind of go into a little bit of the existing conditions, which will kind of demonstrate the need for the project. Here we're looking at northbound 405 near Mulholland. And you can see the cracked pavement, which is not ideal, right? We want to provide a smooth riding experience with competent surface. It's important to note that these kinds of conditions that you see, for example, here at the southbound 405, further demonstrate the need for the type of scope that we have on the project. And we can go into the next slide where we kind of talk a little bit more about some of that scope, right? So in certain sections of the 405 between Victory and Wilshire, we'll be replacing entire lanes in certain sections. We'll be removing and replacing portions of the asphalt pavement. So that would be in contrast to our Portland cement slabs. That would be the asphalt pavement. Replace damaged individual concrete slabs. Replace concrete slabs adjacent to bridges, or otherwise known as approach slabs. We have several ADA curb ramp improvements as part of our commitment to fostering a multimodal system accessible to all our constituents. Upgrading 6,400 feet of guardrail to enhance the safety of our right-of-way. Constructing water retention systems to benefit groundwater levels, and this is kind of aligned to Caltrans' constant commitment to lessening the environmental impact of our freeways. Reducing conventional fencing with wildlife exclusionary fencing, thusly reducing roadkill. This is an area that is of particular interest to me and kind of a growing passion of mine of late. Caltrans really participates in a lot of these kinds of efforts, which of course they enhance the safety for the motoring public, but they also prevent the unnecessary loss of life of our wildlife population, and we take that very seriously. So this will kind of help enhance that safety through the corridor and protect the species at the same time. Constructing new maintenance vehicle pullouts. These are kind of like these kind of trapezoidal shapes that we kind of use to widen some portions of the shoulder, allowing for maintenance folks to get access to critical facilities when we have kind of emergency needs. And this allows them to access those locations while keeping a safe distance from the traveling public and also reducing distractions to the traveling motorists. We'll be upgrading traffic management systems elements at several locations. These are those really cool features that most people drive over and don't even notice, but they help to inform all of our smart maps and all of our different kind of traffic management systems that we integrate with across the board. So all of our construction projects are kind of planned and managed and implemented with the traveling public and our neighbors in mind. While, of course, it's expected that the traveling public and kind of other users of the right-of-way are going to interact with our traffic control, we try to plan those working windows and traffic patterns such that they provide the least amount of reasonable delay and impact to the traveling public, which would also result in a safe operation. So as such, we'll be implementing 22 planned 55-hour weekend partial freeway closures Friday night to Monday morning. And I put this in big bold letters. These are not full closures. They will not resemble the, Carmageddon of yesterday. These are where we will always have 2 to 3 through lanes in both directions. We'll be implementing the use of some novel, well-tested and well-tried barrier systems that are not common to be used in a construction project. These are innovative measures that we're going to be using on this project, which will allow us to keep the freeway moving during our extended weekend operations. And again, those go from Friday night into Monday morning, similar kind of time window. There will be some full closures, but these are much shorter windows. These are during the week, and these are anywhere from 3 to 5 hours, I believe, per night. And these are very carefully, meticulously planned and are more focused on specialty operations that require that full closure. And those have standard detours that we've implemented through the years. We'll have more of the kind of traditional nightly lane closures that I think most motorists are accustomed to, that occur usually in the nighttime hours and always provide a reasonable access and minimal queue time, and that would be the delay on your way into the closure. Just thought I'd share that as resident engineer, I typically ask my inspectors to monitor the queue heading into that closure, and we always try to make sure that it's less than 15 minutes. And if it starts approaching that line, that's where we start getting involved at any hour of the day or night. I get that call and we start trying to figure out how to manage the traffic better. There's no lane closures on holidays or special events. Although the contractor may be working behind K-Rail, they would not be able to constrict the travelway during those holidays and special events. And all construction activities will comply with the Caltrans standard specifications for noise. We have a requirement that does not permit the construction activities between, I believe it's 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. to exceed 86 decibels as measured from 50 feet from the job site. or I should say from the right of way. And those measurements also do get calibrated when considering prevailing ambient conditions. We are talking about one of the heaviest traveled highways in, truthfully, the entire interstate system. So we will have to calibrate for ambient noise, but yeah. So that's most of what I had to talk about. I think that the remainder of the factors that will affect the traveling public and the neighbors can be explained by my esteemed colleague Diari Ahmed in the Traffic Management Division, and also Lauren Walicki, who's the Public Information Officer, who can also really be a great resource throughout the project.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. I'm Diari Ahmed. I'm the traffic manager for this project. As my colleagues went through the project, the need and purpose of the project, of course, that comes with traffic issues. And I know everyone here is interested in knowing how Caltrans or we are dealing with traffic delays or demand, and how to mitigate congestions, and what are we planning to do. As you may see on the screen, that the black line along 405, that's a area that is going to be targeted or addressed with this project. And of course, the whole segment is not going to be closed at one time together simultaneously. No, we will not have any two consecutive on or off ramps closed at any time. So those closures are going to be segmental, and it's going to be staged out to the smallest portions possible as the construction requires. Of course, our main goal for this project, we are aiming to divert traffic through our freeway network as much as possible. For the northbound, we are going to activate our changeable message board signs that most of you have seen on the freeway. I'm sure everyone is familiar with them. And we are going to supplement them with multiple road-mounted or shoulder-mounted portable changeable message signs to divert traffic. As you can see, we are going to activate all the way from Orange County line, almost borderline, and we are as you may see, way before 405, 710, and then if somebody misses it there, 110 is going to be another alternative. And if we cannot catch you there, then as you may see, Route 10 is going to be the alternative to go the other route to Route 5 and all the way back to 134 and 101. The green arrows shows how you're aiming, or what we will try to mitigate the northbound traffic, which freeways we are targeting. For the southbound, we will try the same thing. We will have those fixed changeable message sign, as well as the portable ones spread out throughout the area, diverting traffic all the way from catching traffic from before 210 on I-5 and 405, and way before the Topanga Canyon on 118. As you may see, we are diverting traffic to 5 and possible, any possible, or 101, 170, what have you, whatever is possible. We will try to divert traffic those ways to decrease the demand on 405 itself. So that's what our aim is. And as you may see, those dots, the red dots, are the portable message signs that we are going to be deploying for the northbound, and the blue one for the southbound. And we are deploying 32 extra portable ones. And we are targeting, our aim is to maintain delays under 30 minutes at all times. That's what we are going to do. How are we going to achieve this? We have strategized our traffic traffic management plan. So we are deploying or activating CMSs and supplement them with PCMSs before major decision-making points. And we are going to have CHIN activated. Of course, Quick Map is a very useful app. You may download it on your, regardless if you have Android or iPhone, you can download that application on your phone, and you can look at scheduled closure, active closure, scheduled closure up to a month in your area. Is very useful, and everyone can use it. Of course, we are going to have all those portable master sign integrated into what we call work zone information system, automatic information system, in case there is an accident at a certain freeway or on 405 itself. How are we going to change those messages? So those are not fixed messages that we are going to put out there. They are like real time based on the delay of the moving public. So freeway service patrol, we will have tow trucks capable of towing even 9-wheelers available during those closures, the major ones. Of course, supplemented by CHP and traffic officers on the city street, if there is one. We are going to talk about that in the next slide. Of course, the best of all, we have allocated budget as incentive to the contractor if they can lessen or decrease the number of closures that are planned without jeopardizing or public safety and convenience. Signal timing along the detour routes are going to be adjusted. We have collaborated with the city of LA, and thankfully they came forward and they gave us the green light. So we are working together whenever we have detours or the spillover from the freeway to the local routes, local streets. Along the detour route, we are going to adjust those signals to provide more longer green phase and discharge more traffic on the detour direction. As you can see, this is just an example, a simple example. We try to provide the shortest detour. Of course, that's not our aim to divert traffic to local streets. However, there could be some spillover. There might be, but we are ready for it, and that's how we do it. The shortest route, as you can see, if the closure is by Victory, so we are going to close that on ramp from Burbank, and we are diverting traffic for the ramp as well as the one that are getting off of the freeway at Burbank to go along Sepulveda all the way to Victory and getting back on the freeway from that on-ramp. So this is just an example. We will have traffic officers available at every intersection. City of LA is going to provide that, and we have allocated budget for that as well. So with that, this is my traffic portion, and we will be more than happy to answer any concerns or questions later on. Now I give it back to Lauren, our Public Information Officer. Thank you.
Diari, thank you so much. So once we actually get into construction and construction starts, I'll be sending out notifications for the closures, and those will be posted on social media. And like Diari mentioned, there'll also be message signs along the routes alerting motorists of the upcoming closures. In terms of outreach for this project, Caltrans has been in communication with elected officials, neighborhood councils, and also businesses located along the route. Partnership with other organizations are another important part of our outreach. We have been in communication with the Getty, UCLA, LA Department of Transportation, and LAX, among other organizations, and we will continue to coordinate as this project moves into and through the construction phase. And so on this next slide, this is an example of what the closure notice news release will look like. And you'd like to be added to the distribution list to receive these kinds of news releases, we have an email on the next slide that you can actually reach out to. And so this is the email that I was talking about. If you have questions about this project after this meeting, or you don't get your question answered at this meeting, please reach out to repave.405@dot.ca.gov. And we'll be following up with you. And that's also the email that you can reach out to if you would like to be added to the distribution list. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to questions. I know there's already been some in the chat. If you haven't had a chance to, please type your question in the chat and we will go ahead and start going through those. And again, if your question doesn't get answered tonight for some reason, please reach out to that email. I did see some questions asking about if this presentation will be available, and the answer is yes. This meeting is being recorded right now, and someone just asked if there will be a recording. Yes, this meeting is being recorded, and it will be posted on YouTube in the coming days, so go ahead and look out for that on the Caltrans District 7 YouTube page. So let me go ahead and look through some of these questions. Let's see. So one of the questions is from Bilk, and they're asking about when there is an exit that is closed for this project, could you place like an exit close sign, 2 exits ahead of the closed exit so that drivers can have a chance to leave the freeway before the exit that's closed? Is there anyone that can help clarify?
We do have that planned already. Yes, thank you for that question. It's a great question.
Yes, and to kind of expand on that, we have our standard plans that we implement for those types of ramp closures, and as Diari mentioned, there is a series of advanced signage, advanced warning signage as you approach the job site at standard intervals.
We have a question from Thelma Waxman, who is asking about the impact of traffic with PCH currently being closed for the Palisades fire recovery. Maybe we could talk a little bit about how we're taking that into consideration with this project.
Diari, would you like to expand on that?
You can answer that question, I think, better.
Very good. So we are cognizant of the PCH closure. I think it's reasonable to just take a moment and acknowledge that our maintenance crews are working tirelessly in partnership with all necessary agencies to drive that to a satisfactory result for the public. Okay, I just thought that it's important to acknowledge our maintenance folks and the tireless work that they do. And in saying that, we also in the construction phase work very closely with many different divisions to make sure that our construction projects result in a kind of a reasonable impact and that people have a reasonable access to the causeway. So that happens in multiple steps. Initially, we do have a traffic management plan. Diari mentioned some of those components, but as part of that, there's a standard commitment by the construction field office under the responsible charge of the resident engineer, but more importantly, under the direct control of the general contractor, to monitor the impacts of any of our closures actively throughout the night. And like Diari mentioned, we do have our hard engineering kind of target to ensure that we don't see more than 30 minutes of delay for any of our closures. But we in the field will do our inspections and we'll start kind of flagging it as something that requires our attention once we see that queue starts building up a little bit past 15 minutes. And so with that kind of active monitoring and help from our maintenance folks who can kind of advise us as to what's happening in the field, and also our traffic management center, we have a kind of a centralized place that kind of monitors and manages the traffic throughout the district. They interact with emergency services and work in partnership with all the other agencies to make sure that traveling public throughout District 7 can have reasonable access. So I hope that kind of provided a little bit of insight that there is a lot that goes into us managing our field work, And of course, the closure of PCH is one of many environmental factors that we keep our eye on to make sure that we don't have any unreasonable delays.
Mhm. And there's another question from Thelma Waxman. Maybe we could clarify. She's asking, will there always be 1 or 2 lanes closed every day for the next 3 years of construction? I think we did kind of cover that, but maybe just re-emphasize kind of the construction schedules.
So I'd like to say that this is an important distinction to make. Our contractors have control of the operation. Our role is to make sure that their implementation of their field operations is within the constraints of our plans and specifications. Our specifications provide them certain allowable working hours and taking certain lanes within those allowable working hours. Theoretically, they probably could stitch together activities to take lanes every single day. I anticipate most days there will be lane closures, but respectfully, Ms. Waxman, I think that the question is requiring a yes or no to something that has so many variations. So I'm sorry I can't give you a straight answer. The answer is most nights, many nights, but all nights, I'm not sure.
I think the
I'm sorry I
question
couldn't be
was
more specific. Yeah.
Sam, I think the question was more about having a lane closure 24/7. I don't think we have such a thing in this project.
So I'd allow Ms. Waxman to expand on that. I understood the question to be whether or not we would have 1 or 2 lanes closed every night. And my answer is probably not, but many nights we will.
Right.
Perfect. And then we have a question from Clarissa Keller. Will you have this finished before the Olympics? Maybe we could talk a little bit more about the Olympics and this project.
Sure. Again, our plans and specifications anticipated that this project will likely span the time period of the Olympics. And so I think we should all expect that. However, there is a moratorium during that time period. So actually, I'd like to kind of give another shout out. We have a whole dedicated group at Caltrans, and Lauren, you can expand on that, but we have a dedicated group here for LA 28, very focused kind of task force of project managers and engineers that are looking at the implementation of our games route network. And Route 405 is on the games route network, and we anticipate close coordination with the LA 28 team. And so, in short, yes, we have anticipated that this will span that, and we have a plan in place.
I think you summed it up perfectly, Sam.
Sure.
Another question from Ryland Liu and with UCLA Transportation, asking what hours at night will the weekday nightly full closures and also the nightly lane closures be in effect?
um, Once again, when the contractor kind of finalizes their operations and their plans, they provide us their look-ahead schedules. And based on that those look-ahead schedules, they start planning and requesting their lane closures. They have to plan and request those lane closures in compliance with those allowable working hours that I was mentioning. The way those allowable working hours are communicated in the specification is via various what we call charts and tables. And I think on this project, there's probably no less than 20 to 30, maybe more, when you consider all the different ramps and different kind of limits and directions of the 405 that we consider in our charts and our allowable working hour tables. So it would be very difficult for me to give you an exact time frame, but I think that most of the traveling public is accustomed to our work on the 405, and a lot of the closure patterns are going to resemble that. So they're mostly nighttime closures. They start with maybe one lane, maybe as early as 10 o'clock, maybe sometimes as early as 8 o'clock in some parts. And they kind of gradually increase where we can actually take a full closure sometime between midnight and 1 a.m. And most of the closures are required to be fully picked up no later than 5, 6, or 7 a.m. I mean, I'm speaking in general terms, but again, when you're talking about variations across 20 to 30 different of these tables, it's difficult for me to be deterministic at this time.
Yes. Let's see. Elizabeth Rosenson asked, "Isn't PCH going to be reopened before this construction project starts?" So right now the timeline for PCH reopening is I believe, end of May. There hasn't been an exact date that's been released yet, but the governor's office has said end of May for PCH. And so maybe Sam, you can talk a little bit more about the construction timeline for this project.
So, thank you, Lauren. Yeah, the construction project of the construction schedule for this project is looking like we will have a initial job site activities start sometime in late May, maybe early June. And with these activities, I'm expecting things like construction area signs and initial staging of materials, and maybe some minor paving work here and there. But we're expecting that by the time the contractor really settles in and gets into a full swing of production, will likely be sometime in July. And it could be sometime a little bit later in July, but that's kind of the best I can give as far as the beginning of a construction schedule for us here.
Great, thank you, Sam. So we have a question from Lamont Cobb. I think the first part was already answered. So one of the questions was, will you be updating any real-time traffic data systems with things like Google Maps, etc., so that cars aren't rerouted to Sepulveda, Laurel Canyon, etc.? So with my news releases, those do get sent to people who work at Google Maps, and they make sure to put those closures on the maps. We also have quick maps that's available as well, and those are updated with all the closures of ongoing projects or even just kind of work in the field. So those are your basically, yes, we do have real-time traffic data that is updated. So if anyone wants to add to that, but that's the kind of short answer is there's very
I thank you, Lauren. I believe Waze. Not sure if Google takes data from our quick map and show it on their maps on the traffic conditions. I'm not sure of Google.
well, for at least for when I send out my news releases, they go to some people at Google and they update their maps. So they respond to me. So I know that they are updated with kind of the latest closures that we send out. Again, I'll also be posting all the closures on our social media pages. So there will be lots of updates going out to alert the public about the closures. Just looking through all the questions because some of these have been answered already. Here's a question. Donna would like to know if we have any information about the schedule near Sunset and Moraga. I think Sam did answer that, but maybe just again so people can continue hearing that message.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of our part of the project initiation during the construction phase is we have the contractor submit to us what's called a baseline schedule. And in that baseline schedule, they'll lay out all their activities from start to finish on the project. And we are right now in that stage of planning with the contractor. So at some point before we get started, we will have a projected schedule and sequence throughout the project. We don't have that at the current moment, but it's important to note that a lot of those activities and logic between those activities are subject to change due to field conditions and other things that might come up, and we may divert our focus to some other area while we deal with some other issue. I guess my point is that that schedule is more of a tracking document for us administratively. The most accurate information you're going to find out about the areas that affect you, whether you're trying to access from Skirball to Bel Air or you're taking Sunset to Brentwood, is going to be paying close attention to Lauren's disclosures. She's going to be attending or have access to our notes from our weekly meeting with the contractor, which will include that look ahead schedule. And that look ahead schedule that Lauren will distribute, that will be your most accurate source of information. But of course, we understand people have special events they want to plan, weddings, birthdays, you name it. And people want to know that, hey, are you going to be there in October? And you can always submit a request to Lauren, and she'll do her best to provide you that information to the best of her accuracy. Yeah.
Exactly, yes. Again, I put the email in the chat as well, but if you would like to be added to the distribution list, it's repave.405@dot.ca.gov. Yeah, thank you for putting it up on the screen too, Kenny. And so you can reach out to that email to be added to the distribution list. Again, these will all be posted on social media as well. So we have a question from Debbie Nussbaum. There are two other projects being discussed for the Sepulveda Pass, the Express Lane project and congestion pricing project. Will this project be implementing any express lane or congestion pricing reconfiguration of the 405 traffic lanes? So I think this is kind of more about the scope of our project.
For this project, it's just a pavement rehab, so we not anticipate for any kind of expansion or maybe uh, 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 um, more volume added for this project. So that's the reason why that for this kind of congestion, we need a different type of project to include. So that they can include in the scope. Otherwise, this project we are not intends to include to resolve any kind of congestion, current congestion of the freeway.
Along that same lines, we have a question from Irene Sandler. Again, the Express Lane project begins around 2026. How will you work with that project happening the same time as yours? So this kind of goes to all of our partnerships with other agencies, and I know, Kenny, you've been working really hard to communicate with all of our various partners and agencies and coordinate this project with that one. Is there anything that you can share about maybe coordinating with the Express Lanes project?
At this point, we did notify for the PM, the project manager on that project, that this project is coming on this Route 405. They aware of our schedule, and so that they can readjust the schedule so that they don't have any impact to these projects. That's what we have so far. We and see, of course, we're gonna have a close. It depends on what the existing condition or during the construction. Anything that got delayed, we have to closely communicate with the other project manager on that project so that they can update the schedule for the other projects. Thank you.
And I'd like to add something else too that we deal with in the construction phase, and maybe it's worth it to kind of QR attendance into some of our Caltrans internal process. So when a project comes out to construction, by the time the public interacts with it in construction, it's already been beating for a long time. In other words, we have a lot of legwork that goes into a project before it hits the street and goes into construction. And even when it's in construction, one of the functions of, for example, a field construction office and a resident engineer or a construction engineer like myself would be to work closely with the project development teams of the other projects that are around. For example, we have multiple projects that are going to come through Route 405 corridor in this area throughout the span of this project. And it's one of our standard provisions that we put in our contract where we list all the contracts that are going to probably come through, and we actually make it the contractor's responsibility to coordinate with those projects. So this is actually quite routine for us to interact with those other projects. And I'd like to also add that, for example, the Games Route Network projects will come through the limits of this project while it's happening. That's just one good example of a high profile effort that'll be closely coordinated with our contractor to make sure that we don't experience unnecessary delays, but most importantly, that the public isn't subject to uncoordinated closures that are consecutive and kind of result in unnecessary delay.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. So this question is from Peter Julian. Since this project was planned prior to the fire, how has it changed since the Palisades fire?
So change in project scope after it's already been contracted is kind of very, it's a very important and careful process. We typically can't arbitrarily expand the scope of our project, even if we do have events like the fires that make everybody think a little bit more. It's fair to point out that the scope of this project is very limited in its exposure to elements that would contribute to a fire. Remember, we're talking mostly pavement work. There is some guardrail work, but it's in areas that may already have guardrail, and it's not really interacting with raw vegetated slopes. But in the areas where we do, we will keep a close eye on it. And if there's any minor things that we can do to accommodate, we'll take a look. But the public should understand that it's not easy for us to arbitrarily include additional scope. If we identify a need, it goes through the project development process, and I can only presume that project management division already has taken quite a few of these feedback and they're planning projects for the future. But this project is focused on pavement rehabilitation and probably would not address those.
If I may add to what just said, I felt that the fire effect on this project or vice versa is not going to be as much, because during weekdays when people commute to work, school, what have you, there's not going to be closures, especially during peak hours. No lane is going to be closed. The planned closure, the 50-hour closure, the 22 50-hour closures are planned on weekends. And same thing with those closures that may cause delays up to half an hour, which if the scope of that work requires it. Same thing is planned for night times and mostly weekend nights. So during daytime, there is not going to be much interruption to traffic coming from fire or going to that area. And when this project comes to construction in July, hopefully by then, majority, more than 90% of debris cleaning of Palisades area is going to be completed. Actually, it's planned to be completed almost more than 80% by, I think, end of May. So those number of trucks, only those people who have opted out from federal from federal cleaning for them are around maybe 15%, I would say, or 20 at the most. So they have started already applying for permits to do the cleaning process. So the number of trucks removing debris are not going to be as much. But for commuters going back and forth from Topanga and from the other side going to Topanga area to Malibu, hopefully by then, and we are optimistic that the PCH is going to, and Topanga, both are going to be open by then.
Thank you, DR. I think that answered quite a few questions in the chat, actually, so that is very helpful. Thank you for sharing that information. We have a question from Matthew Duda. Have the materials for roadway surface improved from the 2014 materials used for the most recent widening of the 405 northbound and Diamond Lane installation?
This is a very interesting question, and I wish that there was a way for me to kind of have a dialogue here. I guess the feedback that I'm getting is this particular member of the public is maybe pointing out that they're hoping the quality of the materials are better or something. I really can't tell. What maybe the best thing I can do is provide you an insight into the tight quality control and quality assurance procedures we do implement here at Caltrans. So again, for economic reasons, right, we bid out our contracts to our contractors, and they use their ingenuity and market competence to furnish competitive bids for all of their work, subject to compliance with our contract, right? So our contract is going to ask for certain gradation of material, certain composition of the different paving materials, whether they be job mix formulas for asphalt or mixed designs for concrete. It requires certain cure rates to make sure that they're going to be a kind of competent driving surface in time for us to open to traffic. And we kind of manage that process through various submittals but then also through a sampling program that the contractor implements while they're doing the construction. You know, after the construction is complete, or what seems to be complete, in other words, we've removed the old pavement, we've put back the new stuff, we made sure it had good mix, we made sure it had good implementation in the field. We then go through a smoothness evaluation. And actually, part of the contract here is the entire concrete pavement surface. Whether we replace those slabs or we leave it in place, we'll get a profile surface grind and correction. So, I mean, I can only tell you that we're always committed to delivering the highest quality to the public on every project. And of course, it is kind of controlled chaos to have an industrial factory setting up temporarily every night on the freeway and tear it down every night on the freeway. But we do have very well practiced contractors and very good implementers in our quality assurance groups. So I hope I don't disappoint. Let's say it that way.
And then we have a question from Jean. Will there be a time and day where the whole freeway, both the northbound and southbound, be closed for construction? And I think we know the answer to that, but if anyone just wants to again clarify,
I
the
am
freeway
not
closures.
aware of both sides at the same time. I am aware of directional closures. I'm trying to rack my brain because I'm very careful when I say there isn't. But to my knowledge, I really don't think there is a time we're closing both directions of the 405, only one direction at a time.
Another question from Debbie Nussbaum. Are the HOV lanes part of the resurfacing project?
So they are part of the limits of this work. There will certainly be individual slab replacements. I am not certain if we have full lane replacements in that particular lane. Because they tend to be less traveled, they tend to get beat up a little bit less. And a lot of our heavier traffic and heavier lane replacements are usually on the outside lanes where we see heavier truck traffic. Again, I'd like to kind of confer with the plans. Lauren, do you mind noting that and allowing me to kind of get back to the public here in a little bit when I have time to look into the detail?
Absolutely. I'll make a note of that right now.
In general, though, I believe it's limited to slab replacements and surface grind. I don't think we have full lane replacements in HOV lane.
Just in addition to what Sam just said, there might be some times during the 55 hours or nightly closure that the HOV is going to be converted to a mixed flow lane. With, of course, with signs, and we are going to have multiple signs indicating that, which, of course, to discharge traffic and minimize delays for everyone. So that may happen, but other than that, Sam is going to look into it and getting back to you guys if there's the lane replacement required for HOV, but I doubt it also. I don't think there's any.
Right. And then a question from Lori Kelson asking to repeat the timeline for reopening for PCH in Topanga. Again, PCH, the latest that we've heard from the governor's office is that PCH will be reopened to the public, one lane in each direction at the end of May. That is the latest timeline we have for that. For Topanga Canyon Boulevard, there is no updated timeline for reopening on that road at this time. So that is the latest information that we have on that. Let's see. Jean is asking, do you have any advice for commuters that drive on the 405 daily? And how can we best plan our travel around this project? We are going to have a lot of signs that I know Diari went through to divert traffic when there are closures. But is there any other advice the project team has? I mean, I think paying attention to where the closures are is a big part of planning your route.
Well, as I talked about in the presentation, we are not going to have, and I just repeated it actually, we are not going to have activities during daytime, during peak hours. So
During the week.
Either from that route going to work or going anywhere utilizing 405 between 6 and 9 and 3 and 6 in the evening, in the afternoon, we are not planning any closure I'm not, well, I'm excluding, when I say that, I'm excluding emergency work. That may happen anywhere, anytime. Planning for them, we do not have such a thing. So I hope with that, the effect or the adverse impact on the commuters of 405 or daily commuters going to work and back is going to be minimal, if there is any.
And please, if I could make one plea to the public, please pay very close attention to the information coming out of Public Information Office. The Public Information Office truly is the public's advocate in the project development team through all phases. And so really kind of looking to the Public Information Office as your source of support, as your source of general sanity when you're trying to keep things straight and make it to that particular meeting. And while we're talking here, I'm looking through the charts, and I can confirm for you that we do not have any work that is permitted after 5 and 6 in the morning, depending on the location. It's important to note that it is a field operation. As I said, we establish a industrial factory out there on the freeway under a temporary closure, and we manage it by the minute, literally by the minute we're checking. We do have contingency plans in place to make sure that we can open to traffic on time. But it's very important for me to set the realistic expectation that we are not infallible, we are not perfect, and despite our contractors' desire to do so, they are not either. And sometimes there's things that are outside of our control. And in those rare moments is when we immediately contact our traffic management center. They immediately get on the horn with PIO and others. And depending on the severity of that particular event, where we were supposed to open by 6, but we cannot, you can pay close attention to our Public Information Office, and they will be communicating with you in real time. These are the best we can do to plan for success and also prepare for the times where we falter. I'd also like to point out something that I think I didn't maybe stress enough. As part of the tireless effort that DTM goes through to set up the traffic management plan and the TMP data sheet and all of those kind of commitments, part of it is to make sure that the resident engineer works with the contractor for emergency vehicle management. So as we talk about this freeway does cut through, and it kind of occurred to me when Diara, you were talking about the fire hazard severity. Certainly we will not have closures during high traffic hours, but even during those off hours, sometimes emergencies occur. And we are cognizant that we're cutting through a very high fire severity zone, and that fire department and emergency services will have to cut through our job site. And so our contractors ready for that, our inspectors are ready for that, and our TMC communicates with our inspector directly to make sure that they coordinate with the contractor and escort those emergency services through with minimal disruption to their route. Thought I'd point that out for everyone's peace of mind.
Yes, and again, I want to emphasize, we do, if you haven't used Quick Maps before, it's a wonderful resource. They work, again, very closely with our traffic management center and people in the field to make sure that's updated with all the recent closures. So that is another great resource for the public to use. I have a question from Kaja Keel, and this is about asking about the rapid transit and asking like how this project is kind of working in tandem with a rapid transit project.
So I think Kenny, I think this ties back to some of those multimodal type kind of things that are being discussed. And I want to tie this back to the question that came up earlier about the high occupancy toll or other type of kind of enhanced capacity projects. It's important to note this project really primes the 405 through this corridor for a lot of those concepts. While they're being evaluated in parallel, making sure that we have a very good competent surface here on the 405 allows those projects to plan with confidence. One of the challenges for those projects that we're all excited about, everybody is cognizant and aware that the 405 through Sepulveda Pass is a very important corridor. But I think that this project, whether it was intended to or not, is going to serve as a really good clearinghouse to make sure that the right of way is predictable for any of those potential future projects. But this particular PDT does not deal with those projects, unfortunately.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
We have another question actually from someone named Lauren as well. So if the delays reach more than 30 minutes during construction, are real-time changes made? And what is kind of the response if delays are more than 30 minutes?
It's a
Well, as
perfect
I
question.
mentioned during the presentation, our PCMS signs and the fixed massive signs that we have on the freeway are going to be reflecting real-time congestion and delays. So if we see delays on certain freeway or 405 exceeding that, we will try to change those messages and divert more traffic toward those other routes, the freeway. And we are going to have, of course, we have presence of CHP on. We'll have them on the connectors on the route itself. Try to mitigate it, but it may happen. Actually, we have to be realistic. It may happen, but we are not aiming for it to happen, and it's not in our plan to make it happen. We have, as long as we hope that most of the traveling public are going to read the signs and comply and take other routes. So that's always, there is a risk, but it's calculated for. And we are trying to mitigate it whichever way is possible. Of course, through our quick map, there's going to be messages as well. So we will try all that we can to mitigate those congestions and try to keep them under 30 minutes.
Yeah, and part of the question, I guess one part of the question, DRA, certainly would pertain to those extended weekend closures where we do have that sophisticated network of kind of signs that are communicating with each other, which is a really cool. I would say it's a really cool, innovative feature that I've only seen on recent projects. So this is a pretty big project that'll be implementing that, and it's going to be really neat to see that in the extended weekend operations where we have 2-3 lanes in each direction of 405. It's important to note that during the extended weekend closures, where we use those sophisticated signs, or during our standard closures, the field inspectors from the field construction office monitor that queue time. And as I said, once it hits around 15 minutes, they kind of go on high alert that maybe we're starting to see a little bit more flow than we were expecting. And to answer your question as to what real-time actions we take, it really depends on the operation. Sometimes we're doing an asphalt grind and pave operation where we could just, call it quits for the night, tell the asphalt grinding machine to stop. We order it to stop out of sequence with the contractor, and we have them finish up whatever they remove to that point, and we open up early, right? And we do our best to do so. Other times we're working on bridge approach slabs, and these are where we remove the entire width sometimes of the pavement section in front of a bridge, and we have to tie rebar and we have to do all sorts of things. It's impossible to open on that operation. So when we have such sensitive operations that it's impossible to open on, we typically require the contractor to have a contingency plan in place, that whether it be for an emergency, for unexpected high flow, that we implement that contingency plan. Now, I have to be realistic, like DRE said. Those contingency plans are really sort of emergency backup solutions, and as such, sometimes they're not able to be implemented within 5 minutes. Sometimes it may take 2 hours to implement that contingency plan, and we may open late anyway. But what it does do is it gives peace of mind to the kind of construction phase, to public information office, that we're not going to be in a position where if the plant goes down, we have to keep the thing closed for 3 days, because we can't, find concrete anywhere. No, we will always have a contingency plan to be able to reopen that freeway in a reasonable amount of time. And I think that is real time when you talk about construction field activities, but to the public, it may feel like forever. Real time seems like 5 minutes, and for us, it's more like 2 or 3 hours sometimes.
Yes,
I
and we
just
have
wanted,
a oh,
I
go
just
ahead,
wanted to
Dion.
add something. Uh, Lanes that are going to be closed we are going to close only number of lanes that are required to deliver the scope of that shift. So we are not going to close lanes, or we are not allowing the contractor close extra lanes for no reason. So regular closure that may occur, nightly closure, we are not expecting to have any delays, except when we have certain items, for example, slab replacement, individual slab replacement that requires extended extra hours, or lane replacement. So we have worked on that. We have considered that. Your convenience comes first. So we have taken all of these into consideration. We have tried our best, and we are trying our best to decrease that impact, the construction impact on Marine public in general.
Yes, and now we have a question from Donna and Sam. I do think you did acknowledge some of the kind of emergency precautions for this project, but Donna wants to know if a new fire breaks out this summer and people need to evacuate, how will our project and construction work like accommodate that?
Oh, well, okay. So, firstly, I myself live in a very high fire severity zone. I remember how jarring it was to kind of have to pack everything up, the dog, the cats, the kid, and everything. And it was a very, very intense experience. I think as Angelinos, we've all kind of looked at the lion, and the lion looked back at us, and we all kind of, I think we all kind of empathize with each other in that respect. Um, so to be more specific about the project and what we would do, for example, if there was a fire, well, immediately, we have to understand that the project limits, okay, will be under the direct control of our general contractor. And we have kind of standing orders with our general contractor to respond to any emergencies within the right of way, and handle it. I guess what's important to point out is that through the duration of the project, the condition of the freeway is such that it's under the contractor's control. So only the contractor would be able to really deploy immediately and move whatever K-rail out of the way so the fire truck can get in there and fight the fire. So it's important to note that our contractors understand that responsibility, and that's demonstrated by numerous emergency projects that we see, whether they be for the fires or through mudslides or through anything else. I think that the public has seen what happens when the apparatus of Caltrans has to deal with an emergency. Our contractors are one of our strongest areas. They show up, our maintenance folks show up, and I think that the public will be, at a very minimum, understanding and appreciative of the level of commitment we have to that. I myself have delivered emergency work in this particular corridor, managing 24 hours, 7 days a week for 45 days to open a ramp. We take that stuff very seriously. So I hope that gives you some peace of mind that we are ready to respond to it. And absolutely, if there's a fire raging, there will be no closures. Just to give you that also peace of mind.
Thank you, Sam. We have a question from Peter Julian. He wants to know where the funding for this project is coming from. Is there someone who can address that a bit?
Well, the funding from this project is majority is from federal. It's a SHOP program. Majority is 88% from federal, and the rest of them is come from the state of California. I hope I answer your question.
So I'm seeing some of the chat questions kind of slow down a bit. If there is anybody who would like to ask their question and have me unmute them, if you could raise your hand, and we'll kind of go through some questions that way as well. If you do not want to speak, of course, continue putting your questions in the chat. Tina Backstrom wants to know, what are you going to do if traffic diverts to local or arterial streets? I think the project team has kind of addressed this a bit.
Yeah, when what would we do if traffic diverts to local streets? Okay, so we have as part of it depends on the type of closure and it depends on what we're really dealing with. You know, if
Mm.
I should say the nature of the question, it tells me it's from kind of a concern, as in like some detrimental effects by traffic getting diverted to the local street. And usually that's not going to happen with our typical nightly closures. I mean, in my experience on the 5 and the 405, 101, 134, we don't typically see the traveling public going to local streets when we do our normal nightly closures. So then I have to kind of discern that this question is more related to our extended weekend closures and maybe some of our more disruptive activities. As part of the traffic management plan data sheet developed by Division of Traffic Management, they've identified several key partnerships. City of Los Angeles traffic officers, California Highway Patrol through our construction zone enhancement enforcement program. You guys have always seen our CHP officers, our sister agency, always there with us in the right of way to kind of alert the public that here is a closure, it is coming. If the inspectors notice that there's kind of undue traffic causing a disruption in the neighboring community, certainly the CHP is able to communicate with TMC, who has every one of the agencies right next to them, who can mobilize resources to help out. Now, I've never had to do that. And especially with good planning from DTM and partnership with the City of Los Angeles, having DOT officers out there, I anticipate that that flow will be managed effectively. Something else is that if you do experience something that we don't see, remember, we're not infallible and we do have limited resources after all, please communicate that through our customer service request system. I think Lauren can provide that to you, or directly to repave.405@dot.ca.gov. Because as soon as we see a request, you would be surprised how quickly, I mean, I would say most of the time within 48 hours, CSR requests that go to our general line end up in front of my inbox, right? And when they go to people like Lauren, our public information officers who work tirelessly, I think, around the clock, I'm not sure when they sleep, but they get it to us almost the next day. So sometimes if you experience something for one night, you let us know, we can make adjustments and improve it for the rest of the time we have the operation.
Yes, and I think I just put the link for customer service requests in the chat. So if anyone does have anything for that, you have the link right there. Again, if anyone does want to um, ask a question and unmute, please raise your hand. I'm checking the participants box for anyone for that. Let's see. Um, mm, 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 Looking to see if we have any more questions. Oh, a question from Debbie Nussbaum. Where are you going to set up your work maintenance yards for this project?
Our work maintenance
think
yards.
I think
Oh,
like in I'll let you go for it.
yeah, so I think we're talking about like where the contractor sets up and stages their equipment and different yards and things. So, as I mentioned before, the project limits are under the control of the contractor. So you may find them staging their material and equipment in various locations. However, they are subject to our standard specifications for public safety and public convenience. They are not to set up, for example, K-rail without a plan. Okay, so any K-rail you see out there has been evaluated not only by the resident engineer to make sure that it was in the plan and implemented correctly, but before it ever even got to the plan, there were studies performed by licensed engineers to make sure there's adequate site distance, adequate access, and adequate merging distance for any of those K-rail locations they'd be accessing and storing equipment in. Also, any of the kind of gore areas we have at our ramps are typically within their purview to use, again, subject to public safety and public convenience. A really important factor here, particularly through this pass, although we are in metropolitan city of Los Angeles, it is kind of a very environmentally sensitive. I don't want to say environmentally sensitive to the extent that it's like, endangered, but it is. We are aware that it's an environmentally intriguing part of our city. It's naturally beautiful, and there's a lot of different kind of state right of way that's kind of tucked in throughout those hills there. And so all of the contractor's occupation and operation have to comply with our strict environmental, air quality, and stormwater runoff control procedures. So if you see any equipment that's out there, it has containment for their oil drip pans. If you see any porta cans, they have secondary containment. Any hazardous waste is clearly demarcated and has secondary containment and is away from our drainage facilities. So I'm trying to provide as expansive a response as possible to kind of give the public some peace of mind that the contractor, and some awareness that the contractor will occupy various locations in the state right of way between Victory and Wilshire. They'll likely have a crusher, a batch plant, and different things, but everything will be implemented per the Caltrans stringent environmental and air quality requirements.
Thank you, Sam. And I see, was there anything else anyone wanted to add?
No, not at all.
Perfect. I see Ryland Liu has their hand raised, so I'm gonna go ahead. Let's see if I can unmute. Let's see. Perfect. Ryland, you're on.
Thank you, Lauren. Good evening. I just want to ask when the final schedule is expected to be released. This seems like a much overdue project, so I'm glad you're, getting to, repaving some of these segments. But being one of the largest institutions in the vicinity of the project and being close to the busiest, probably the busiest off-ramp and on-ramp on the project corridor, want to make sure that we are in the loop regarding traffic impacts and closures.
And just to clarify, I believe you're with UCLA Transportation, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Oh.
So just if anyone didn't know. Perfect. Thank you so much for your question. Was that everything?
Yes, that was the gist of my question. Is just when we will receive the schedule and sequencing. Happy to talk more offline. With project team or representatives. As it gets closer to the time.
And that's right. Is that Ryland?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So Ryland, as I mentioned, the overall, I would say the administrative schedule. Anyway, I'm more than happy to share the administrative schedule as soon as we have it in kind of a rough sequence and kind of logic. But I cannot stress enough that administrative schedule that we'll share is very conceptual and is subject to numerous changes. And that the best schedule information you're going to get is going to be on a weekly or bi-weekly basis from Public Information Office. And of course, Ryland, if you have specific concerns, specific special events, specific really areas of concern, and given that you guys are, listen, the way that I see it is every entity and person I treat with an equal level of concern and urgency. So whether it's a single individual living, somewhere within the vicinity of the project, or it's you as a large entity, I treat everybody with the same level of urgency and sort of kind of care. So if anybody has special concerns about traffic impacts surrounding a special time in your life or a special event or anything else, please do try to reach out. I think that when you do reach out, you'll probably be redirected to a lot of information that has already been published, but maybe didn't catch your attention quite yet. And that's really the power of our public information office. Most of the time when you knock on that door, they've probably thought of your question already. They've probably distributed something, and they kindly kind of show you where that information is. And when you want more pointed information, keep asking. They're ready to help. Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, I think, let's see. We have another question in the chat. Donna wants to know how the contractor was awarded this project.
Okay. We have the State Contract Act that kind of dictates our procurement process. And maybe kind of Kenny, you can kind of walk us through the real technicalities of procurement. But the long and short of it is it's a competitive bidding process.
Correct, Sam. We put out this project for advertisings, and any competitive bidder, they can participate and submit their bid. And of course, the lowest bid will win the contracts. So that's why very fair. I guess it's very fair to everybody's for all the bidder to bid these projects and win these contracts. I'm not sure I answer your questions.
I think that is good. And I think Donna actually has their hand raised. So Donna, I'm gonna go ahead and ask you to unmute and ask your question.
And I live in the Sepulveda Pass, and it was pure hell. I can't even describe what hell it was. Being kept up all night, almost every night, with the building shaking. It was just horrible. And they would say that they were within the whatever the decibels that the city allows. But I'm just letting you know that was torture. And so I'm having major nerves about this new project. I don't understand the difference between what happened with the expansion of the 405 freeway and what you're suggesting near Moraga and Sunset. I live near Moraga and Sunset in the Bel Air area. I am very concerned about this to the point for my health and sanity. If it were going to be anything close to Carmageddon and the level of disruption to my life, I would absolutely need to leave for Los Angeles. And I really need to understand what's the difference between pavement. You said some exits are going to need reinforcement, I think, for their on and off ramps. I have no idea if I live in an area where it would need reinforcement. I very much need to know the answers to those questions, which you may or may not know at this moment in time. I also asked about how was the contractor picked? I didn't particularly care for the contractor who did the widening of the freeway. They didn't care anything about the neighbors, nothing about the neighbors. And it was just a disaster. So when you tell me they were picked, and I think I heard you say they may have put in a low bid, forgive me if I didn't hear that right, but that doesn't rest easy with me. And then the last thing I just want to mention is I've evacuated, like many, many people in this city, for multiple fires, not one, not two. And as you know, what happened in Pacific Palisades, people were running out of their cars, because the cars got backed up. I would hate to see that happen on either the 405 or the side streets where you have people detouring. So I'm not comforted to know that the contractor may have been picked because they put in a low bid. I want to know that they have experience working in a fire zone, because we are in the age of climate change and we're guaranteed to have more fires in the next 4 years. Guaranteed. So I would want the public information officer to put out detailed information, what they're going to do in the event of another major catastrophe like Pacific Palisades had, because another huge fire will happen. It always happens. Pray God it doesn't happen where so many people are displaced and homes burned, but it's going to happen. And I want to know that the contractor would know how to respond so that people could escape in their cars safely. So that's one. And then selfishly, I want to know what's going to happen in my neighborhood because I can't live through another Carmageddon. And again, I'm not educated enough to know the difference between what happened then and what you all are anticipating will happen starting this summer.
Um, I, um, I think first of all, it's Donna, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So first of all, Donna, I'm very sorry. I mean, I just have to tell you that I'm very sorry that you had a bad experience. And there's nothing else to say other than to say that I care about your experience. And I very much want to understand more about where you are and how you experienced whatever it was that you experienced. I just want to tell you that um, I take this kind of feedback very seriously. And we will, Lauren, if you could just kind of, take note of that and maybe follow up offline, understand a little bit more about the specific location. It sounds like we've responded to this particular address, maybe or maybe not. To give the kind of audience a little bit of insight, when we do get public complaints about noise and vibration, we have noise and vibration specialists that come out with calibrated equipment and measure. And just honestly, it seriously tears me up, Donna, to hear you kind of voice your frustration because I can only imagine. And it's
Well, it was
important to
very bad
recognize.
for my health. People get high blood pressure, they can have heart attacks. It is a very dangerous thing. What happened with Carmageddon? I'm not saying that your people are going to be creating such a horror story as Carmageddon. I pray not. And again, I don't know the difference between the widening of a freeway and fixing on and off ramps. To
Donna,
me,
may I,
mhm.
if you don't, I mean, I understand. Believe me that I understand, and I want to understand more specifically about where you are
Okay,
because during that widening project, there was a lot of different kinds of scope that had a potential. Okay, and this project is very different in nature.
okay.
Now, admittedly, it is a construction project. There is heavy equipment, and I'm not going to kind of act like I can predict exactly every detail. So that's why these conversations and your feedback is so important. Please do reach out to Public Information Office to provide more specifics about your location. And I can promise you simply that I will investigate, look into it, and keep a close eye to make sure that not only your location. I've been, by the way, I've been trying to find Sunset Moraga. I'm on my screen over here to the right, frantically trying to see if I can see any of the contributing
Well,
factors.
I could tell you if you look up the Bel Air Bar and Grill, they might have changed the name or that the pizzeria. It's right off of Moraga. There, I don't know the exact, or there's an address that Getty bought this building, 630 Acanto or 630 Sepulveda. That's the area where I am. And those are
630
some,
Sepulveda,
yes,
630 North Sepulveda, right?
correct. So that's
Okay.
that's the Bel Air neighborhood, okay? And by the way, we just evacuated a fire that was up a few blocks from here, right after the Palisades fire. And and it's frightening to think about construction gear, trucks, and roads that aren't even paved if another fire happens where we have to evacuate. So
So,
I don't know how you guys deal with that. And I'd like to know because I was mortified when I heard this was going to happen just because of what I went through with Carmageddon. And then with this recent fires, I have so many friends that lost their homes, so many friends that were caught in Pacific Palisades running from their car. This is very recent. This is a major trauma that my friends have recently been through. And now you're telling me that there may be road closures and it's going to be up to the contractor. I don't know who this contractor is. I
but
don't,
I'm sorry, Donna, but I think that I made a very, very important distinction that although the job site will be in the contractor's control, it is subject to our contract and the special provisions that we impose on that contract. In other words, the contractor is responsible to follow our contractual requirements, which are very strict with respect to environmental concerns that have to do with noise and vibration, air quality, and stormwater runoff. Not only that, but we also have to be very mindful of, for example, nesting seasons and different things. We have project biologists that come out to observe our operations specifically to make sure that we are within our environmental commitments. The fact of the freeway is that it requires maintenance. And although I can appreciate the fact that some disruption for some may be unacceptable, I think as a community, it's important to appreciate the fact that the maintenance is necessary and that certainly there will be some activity, there will be some closures, but I think that I made the point very clear in the presentation and I tried to say it as bold as possible. These traffic patterns will not resemble what we experienced during what was referred to as Carmageddon, or the 405 widening project that happened some years ago. Okay, the freeway will always have through traffic lanes available. We have engineers that are responsible to monitor these activities in the field as they occur and make adjustments as necessary. And I really cannot stress enough, please do communicate with our PIO. I don't want to belabor the point, and it's not to move past your trauma and your feelings and your pain are very real and they're important to us as public servants. And maintenance of the roadway to ensure the safety of the roadway and a reasonable surface, and also safety of the traffic devices, and also drainage improvements which will prevent flooding and other erosion concerns, which then cause more fires, right? All these aspects of the project benefit, I think, the community at large and the motoring public that comes through the area. Thank you, Donna, for your concern, and please keep the communication coming to the PIO, please. We want to hear from you.
All right,
Just
thank you.
some extra information regarding the perception of the contractor can close. We are not leaving it to the contractor what time to close and when to close. Within the special provision of the project, we have provided for each location chart, specify how many lanes can you close at what time. So he cannot just go randomly close a lane during in the middle of the day. So he has to comply. Wherever he works, he has to comply with those chart or specifications. But we cannot restrict him and tell him, okay, you cannot work here, start the work from here. That's what Sam was trying to tell you, to explain. So basically, yes, we do control the contractor, where to work, what time, not where to work, what time and how many lanes he's allowed to close. But where to work, that's up to his team and his schedule. Did I make that clear for you?
Perfect. Yeah, I just want to say thank you again, Donna, for your feedback. And again, I'll continue to be in communication with you and also with Sam to address and continue to address your concerns. I want to thank Kathleen for being so patient. Kathleen, thank you for raising your hand. I'm going to ask you to unmute so you can ask your question. Kathleen, there you go.
Hi, thank you for your time and information. One question related to the city. Who is paying for the traffic control officers on the side streets when they're needed? The reason I ask that is the city budget is 800 million in the red. And we basically had to beg, steal, borrow to get traffic control on Sunset, with all the traffic from the Palisades and the PCH being closed. Have you talked to the city about this? Who's paying?
Yes, let me take this question. Hi, Kathleen. For your questions, we did reach out with the LA DOT. And we did set the size of certain money to pay for the modifying the local street signalize during the 55-hour closure. And we also have a resource funding for those traffic control officer during those 55-hour closure. So to answer your question, we do set aside fund to have for those traffic control.
Great. Good to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. And I think we have, let's see. I think is it Bill? I think you had wanted to ask a question, so I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. A couple of quick questions. First of all, is this a normal level of failure in this amount of time for the 405 freeway?
Oh, I see. The question is the amount of time that the pavement has been in place until when we are seeing cracks a normal amount of time. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, was the previous contractor Kiewit Construction?
Is it okay if I address the questions one at a time?
Yeah, I was just wondering if when they did the work, if this is an abnormally early level of failure, whether they're responsible for paying for some of this repair.
So, okay, what's important to point out, and the reason why I wanted to address your questions one at a time, let me address your second question first. I don't think it's fair to say that the previous project was performed by Kiewit, because as far as I know, this 405 corridor and most of our major highways in the district are worked on constantly. There's many projects that come through our areas, to be honest with you, there's many projects that come through that maybe the public doesn't even realize they came through. They were planned and executed during off hours, and people didn't even realize that we were out there. So I guess it's kind of important to point out that we don't single out like just one contract because it was the biggest contract like 10, 12, 14, 15 years ago, right? And also that 405 project, as far as I know, and the only reason why, I was not involved personally in that project, but the 405 kind of falls within my area of responsibility. And because I've interacted on the 405 a couple of times by now, as I mentioned, with emergency projects and the like, I've gotten familiar with some of the as-built conditions that we've received from that project. It's important to note that it's not that they rebuilt the whole freeway. Many of the slabs that we're replacing were not implemented as part of that widening. In fact, part of the way that that widening proceeded was that the alignment of the freeway shifted. And so what you'll see when you drive through the freeway right now is that you'll see the joint lines of the old alignment of the freeway. Of course, our striping is there to indicate where you have to go. But I think that when you drive on the 405 right now, you can see that many of the slabs are there from long before that project. Okay. And also, many of our maintenance projects that come through and just replace individual slabs, which I believe has occurred on the 405 since, they're not expected to last the typical, 20-year pavement life and structure life. When you do individual slab replacement and maintenance band-aid like type projects, you really don't get more than 5 to 7 years out of those slabs. So while I can appreciate that the public has a keen eye for the quality of our product, and certainly that motivates us to be on top of our game, I think it's fair to say that there's more than meets the eye, and also that I wouldn't be comfortable with kind of labeling that anything on the 405 goes back to the Kiewit project. I understand that was a very visible project, but we have a lot that comes through the area.
Okay. And also, is the contractor, since some of these areas I presume are going to be very close to the brush, do they have firefighting equipment on hand so that if, a welder or somebody accidentally starts a fire,
Oh.
that they can put it out themselves?
Okay, so that's a very good question. As part of every project, we require, see, remember what we mentioned that the contractor's in control, but it's not so much that they're out of our purview. See, they are in control, and our contract requires them to have certain qualified personnel to be in control, to make sure that they have all the procedures necessary to ensure a safe operation. Before any unique operation, the contractor has to produce and coordinate a job hazard analysis. And this is sort of a specific analysis that a safety professional goes through and identifies hazards just like what you mentioned. And if there are those kinds of hazards, the contractor is required to have means and methods at the ready to handle those hazards that have been identified. Now, again, it is an industrial setting. Sometimes things don't go it per plan. And that's why on all of our, operations, or I should say, most of our operations, we endeavor to partner with our CHP, with our California Highway Patrol, through our Construction Zone Enforcement Enhancement Program, COZEEP, to have CHP officers at the ready on site. Because if anything kind of unexpected happens that goes out of that control, immediately CHP can be on the line to TMC, who has the fire department right next to them, and they send someone out expeditiously. And if for some reason CHP isn't there, our field inspectors have a direct line to TMC to get someone out there right away. So I guess there's redundant systems in place, and it all starts with the contractor taking responsibility for their operation, planning accordingly, and preparing for the worst. Does that kind of address your question?
Yeah, and then a final question. I've seen in the past, not related to construction, but it could be an accident or something else. I've seen situations where Stradella Road, Roscommare Road, Coldwater Canyon, Benedict Canyon have literally been bumper to bumper from Sunset to Mulholland and not moving because they just don't have the wherewithal to handle that volume of traffic. If something like that pops up because of a closure, how are we? Who do we contact, and how do we deal with that?
Well, I think it's important to note that we live in Los Angeles. I think it's important to note that all those canyon crossings you just mentioned routinely on a daily basis get backed up, and the only reason why I say is because I I deal with them, right? And so it's just important to calibrate our expectations a little bit and understand that we deal with a lot of cars out here. Okay. Now, when you ask the question of what does the public do if we notice a systemic impact to city streets purportedly from state Department of Transportation closure patterns, we contact PIO, we contact customer service request hotline. We make our request, we make our inquiry, we document whatever we can. The more feedback you provide, the better informed that we are. And we investigate. I have to set your expectations. Many times we'll investigate and find out that the traffic pattern is prevailing and that, maybe we didn't have any impact on it at all. And, sometimes we find out maybe we had only a 10% impact, that particular route is already impacted every day from, for example, 6 to 9, and we're not even working during that time. So like there's a lot of ways that the feedback gets processed, but it all starts with that feedback. I can't stress enough for you to reach out. So if anybody is seeing something impact their life that they don't like, even if you just don't like it, just reach out, please. It doesn't mean we can do something about it right away, but it does mean we can be aware of it and hopefully make some adjustments to address it.
Okay, and final quick question. Um, when it was answered earlier, but I just want to clarify. Let's take, for example, if there's going to be a closure of Sunset on the northbound lanes, they even if they put up signs as far south as Santa Monica Boulevard that say off ramp closed ahead, no one really knows what it refers to. And then you get up to Sunset and it's closed, and you're going to have to go all the way to Mulholland in order to get off. So can they use signage, which they did not do during any of these other projects, which was very inconvenient? Can they put up signage that actually says the name of the off ramp that's going to be closed, so that at Santa Monica Boulevard, the sign says the Sunset ramp is closed, so then everybody will have a chance to get off at Wilshire and not have to drive all the way to Mulholland? Just as an example, it would apply obviously coming the other direction as well.
And and your concern right now is mostly ramp closures, as far as I can gather.
Yes.
Okay. As we're talking,
Because I talked to, I actually stopped my car, got out and talked to the crews, and they said, we don't have anything to do with the signage. We hire an outside company that gets directions from Caltrans as to where to put the signs. And then I spoke to that outside company and they referred me to Caltrans. And then Caltrans said, well, it's a federal highway and there's federal input. I went around in circles and I could never get anything done.
it's Bill. Is it Bill?
Yes.
Okay, Bill. I want to just kind of throw one thing out there. Well, I want to repeat. Reach out to CSR. Reach out to the PIO. What we do here at the department, it's been described by my my division's deputy district director for the Division of Construction as an ocean of information. What we do here in the department is like an ocean. You know, who you're seeing here in this meeting is a small fraction of the workforce that it takes to deliver these projects, so meticulously designed, so carefully planned, to make sure that the contract is implemented safely for the traveling public with a high degree of quality and in compliance with all of our environmental commitments. I have to strongly advise the public to use those standard methods of communicating with the department, which is CSR and PIO, and not approach directly field crews. There is no telling the dangers that you expose yourself to, but also the dangers you expose the traveling motorists and also the contractor's personnel when you approach them through an unplanned access to our job site. So, I mean, I really appreciate the attitude that says, hey, I'm a member of the community and I want to know and I want to approach. And I want to encourage you to do so, but I really also want you to get home safely. And I really also do not want to have to write those reports about those events that they occur. And they occur sometimes out of good intent, but our business is extremely dangerous. I want to tell you, I want to repeat it. Please, please, if my words of begging you can at least burn that into the kind of image here, do not approach job site activities on a freeway ever. I want you to get home to your family and to your life, please. Use CSR, use PIO. We will get back with you very, very quickly. And also, you won't get lost in that ocean that I was referring you to. That ocean, I'm telling you, sometimes we as engineers have difficulty navigating, let alone trying to call and get spun around in 4 or 5 circles. Finally, to address your request directly, you would like us to put more descriptive signage about whatever closure we're implementing. You have to understand that we do have some limitations on the amount and type of text that we can put on those signs. And at times they can be considered even a distraction if there's too much writing on there. So the number of characters, the type of messaging is also very carefully planned and routed through our various engineering functional groups to make sure that we're within those guidelines. So while I want to help, and certainly, Lauren, we can take that as maybe something we can look into. I'd love to help. I just have to say that we have some engineering design constraints that prevent us from being extremely descriptive with our signage. So Bill, I hope that I was able to address your question, and I hope not only for yourself, but for any of the other attendants that my word of caution and concern, truthfully, my word of caution and concern is really kind of received by the audience.
Sami V, allow me to elaborate a little more about the signage that Bill, if I'm not mistaken, alluding to.
Yes.
You know, it's a standard, and it comes. I give you the standard how what kind of messages we put when we place out there when we close an off ramp, and I give you the reason. There are going to be at least minimum 2 signs, portable message sign. One of them we place it before the off ramp, before the one that's closed. On that one, we say such and such off ramp is closed. Please take alternate ramp. Because we do not know when traffic gets out of that ramp, whether they're going south or north. So we give them an option. We tell them to exit. However, when they get to that ramp and it's closed, then on that one, we tell them, hey, this ramp is closed, take the next one, whatever the name is. So that's how the standard is, and that's the reason behind it. So not everyone may want to take the exit before it, the off ramp before it. Some may want to take the one after that ramp. Is that clear?
Yes. My only issue was that first sign frequently didn't identify by name the ramp that was closed, and so you wouldn't know to take an exit.
Right, and that was the reason as I explained, because not everyone wants to go south of that ramp, and it might be quite a distance for those who wants to exit to get back to that ramp. So there's some of them may prefer to exit after that ramp.
Diori, I just want to confirm what we're communicating here. Are we saying that the ramp closures will be implementing PCMS signs naming the ramp?
Yes, those PCMSs are part of the regular closure. Those that they have nothing to do with the 32 signs that we are putting out there.
Correct.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Bill, for all of the questions. If anybody else has any more questions, please put those in the chat or raise your hand. We are getting close to 8 o'clock now, and I want to make sure we address any final questions. Let's see. There is a question from Lior about similar projects in District 7. If you want to see a list of kind of the current projects going on in Caltrans District 7, I can put a link to our project website in the chat. Another question was, has this contractor worked on similar projects with Caltrans District 7 before?
So it just so happened, okay, so right, the similar projects, I think that this type of project with this type of traffic control device, which is the movable barrier system. It looks kind of like, if you guys have been on any of the bridges, like maybe the Coronado Bridge or others throughout the state, that have a barrier that looks kind of like a zipper. It's a lot of little pieces that a big truck comes and kind of moves it over, kind of like a zipper. We're using that. I think it's one of the early implementations of that system, certainly in the district, but I think maybe even in the state for construction projects. But I could be wrong. It could have been used on other construction projects, but it's certainly in the district, it's new. But the implementation of on-site batch plant for rapid setting concrete and partial lane replacement and the like, slab replacement, and basically major pavement rehab was performed by this specific joint venture team of C.A. Rasmussen as the managing partner of the joint venture and Vanguard as a key joint venture partner for them. on a similar scale of project in District 7. So there is a lot of good lessons learned and knowledge that's being shared across projects.
Thank you, Sam. And Ale was asking, is the presentation on the website? So this meeting is being recorded, and it will be posted on our YouTube page in the coming days. And I can certainly, that video will be linked on the project website, so you'll be able to see this presentation and this Q&A portion as well. Let's see. Not seeing any new questions, but if anyone again has any other questions or wants to raise their hand and ask their question verbally, please do so now so we can make sure to get your question answered. And I just want to emphasize again, if you have any follow-up questions about this project, please reach out to me through that email, repave.405@dot.ca.gov. Like Sam has mentioned in this presentation, we want to make sure that we're, addressing your questions and concerns about this project and keep that line of communication open as construction starts and continues. So if you do have any questions, please reach out to that project email. I'm not seeing any other question. Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Oh, we have a nice compliment for Sam from Heeding. He says, I like to thank Sam for eloquently articulating the issues and providing such clear explanation. So there you go, Sam. Got a nice
It's a
compliment
pleasure. It's a
there.
pleasure to serve the department, but I just want you guys to know that everything I've said has come from tireless training from my managers, and I want to say that on most Caltrans projects, the engineers you deal with have been serving the department for more than 20 and sometimes 30 years. And that knowledge transfer has been one of the great pleasures of my career, to be able to absorb all of that experience.
Mhm. Yes, all right. Well, I'll give it another minute or so, but I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to our presentation and engage with this project. Feedback and answering questions is such an important part of the process at Caltrans, and so I just want to thank everybody for taking part in that. Let's see. Can you share the project website? Of course. I'll put that link
With
in the
pleasure.
chat.
With pleasure.
Of course, we worked very hard on it, so absolutely. And again, this project website will be updated as we get those construction schedules finalized and as specific closures are scheduled and things like that. So it will continue to be updated as needed. Amazing. Another compliment. Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, that is in the chat. And again, if you reach out to that repave.405 email, and if you participate in this presentation, I can definitely add your email to the distribution list to receive those news releases that we've been talking about this evening. And I think we've covered everyone's questions. If we did not get to your question, again, I cannot emphasize enough, please reach out to that email and we would love to follow up with you. Thank you all so much for attending this meeting about the I-405 Pavement Rehabilitation Project. A recording of this meeting will be posted on YouTube in the coming days, so look out for that. But otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your evening and thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Stay safe. Stay safe.
Yes.